What's up, everybody? It's your host of the Mint Tea Podcast, Wyatt Graves. Hey, today's conversation is one that I truly needed to connect with in order to better improve my rental portfolio. So if you are in real estate investing, business operations relative to rental space, then today's conversation might be one for you. It's with my friend Sam, who is in the co-living rental space. And somebody told him, you'll find out who it is in the conversation, that co-living is the wave of the future. I didn't really know that. I've been watching Sam from afar. He's in GoBundance. I knew that he was in the co-living rental space. And just a few months ago, I had the opportunity to buy a property that had 9 duplexes and also a 5,000 square foot house that was 11 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms. The thing is, if I wanted the apartments, I had to take the big house. What am I going to do with the big house? Had it not been for my exposure to Sam and his business in co-living rentals, I would have passed on this opportunity. Fortunately, that exposure gave me the idea, gave me the option, talked to Sam, solidified the idea, and now we have the property and I am remodeling the big house, updating it so that it can be custom designed for a co-living rent by the room rental. Today's conversation with Sam is all about co-living, taking one house and renting it out by the room. So, hey, it doesn't have to be a 12-bedroom house like mine, although you'll hear in today's conversation that Sam is taking a 4-bedroom house and turning it into as many as 9 bedrooms and renting them out. If you're in the real estate space, you want to scale your real estate portfolio, here's a creative way that seems to be something new on the horizon, and I think you'll find value in today's conversation with my friend Sam. What's up, man? I'm so glad that we're getting to connect. I know we talked by phone a couple weeks ago, or maybe 2 months or so ago, when I was buying the big house and converting.
How'd that go, by the way?
We bought it. That. Yeah, we bought it. Okay. And so we're remodeling it right now. I have tons of questions to ask you about it. Basically live in front of our audience so that they can all hear how like we do things and kind of like that I don't have the answers before I go off and buy the building or buy the project, right? What's that book? Ready, Fire, Aim. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's just faith. That's what I like to call that. That's faith.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I do believe it's going to work. I'm excited about it. And yet I've never done this before, and I don't know anybody that's in my town that's doing it either. So we're going to try something new and hope it works.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So excited for that. So excited.
Sam, let's get things started with telling my audience like who you are. I know you just a little bit from GoBundance and from Facebook, and so I want to learn more about what you're doing and all the things in your world as part of this podcast too. So I'll just let you take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm ultimately, first of all, thanks for having me on. This is cool.
For sure.
I'm excited. I love the concept of this, and I just recently launched a podcast too. And it's funny because I'll bring guests on and I'll just be like, look, I've got some questions from the audience. And then selfishly, I want to ask you all these things. So it's just like, I get this idea of like the mentee, right? And so it's a cool concept, man. And so I'm honored you bring me on. Ultimately, I'm a guy who was raised in a small town in Virginia and kind of cut my teeth on the martial arts business, bought a martial arts school when I was super young, just kind of at a weird, or fortunate set of circumstances. I was in a small town. My martial arts instructor wanted to get out of the business, and he sold me to school when I was 15 years old. My parents loaned me 15 grand to buy a little school. And it was just like this beautiful setup. And I was homeschooled. So like basically high school became me learning how to run a martial arts school.
Well, that's a concept. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Different. It's like Montessori on steroids. Like you go towards your bent. And I was kind of bent towards business and salesmanship anyway, and those types of things. And so ultimately, man, I'm a faith-based person. And so if I just had to describe myself right now is I'm fairly go with the flow. I believe I'm guided. And so I've kind of I was guided into the martial arts. I've been guided into co-living, which I think we're here to talk about today. I've been guided into the shared housing room rental strategy. And I just love doing things that have a big heart paycheck is what I say. And so with co-living, I feel like we're solving affordable housing. Obviously with martial arts, you're helping kids become more confident and disciplined and just really helping families get along better. So all these things that I'm involved in, it's kind of been the golden thread through my life, is like everything I'm involved in has an altruistic way of looking at it. And so, yeah, that's, I'm passionate about giving back. I'm passionate about serving. I'm passionate about having fun, and a big outdoors guy, and we can go anywhere else you want to on any of that.
Man, I love all that. I'm at a place in my life where I am constantly struggling internally to articulate my passion behind the business, because there's the form, right? Like real estate brokerage, real estate investor, childcare provider, mentee, podcaster, the coach, that's all the forms, but the substance of who I am is impact, right? It's like, I want people to be happy. I want people to be fulfilled. And in everything I do, I want a little bit of that substance to reach them. But how do I articulate it? So it's just funny that you are starting our conversation off with your passion and sort of your, I guess, your why, your mission behind the work, right? So that's your substance, and the form is martial arts and co-living rentals. And I want to reach the customers, but I also want to build this empire where our workplace, where my employees can use their job as the stepping stone to their good life too, right? So it's creating a culture, a workplace culture. So anyway, I could easily, hey, if anybody's out there listening, basically, and they want to help me articulate my vision, reach out. I need help. I need help. But I love that, man. I love it.
My mom, I don't know. My mom put it pretty well. I feel like she was just like, Sam, this is like when I was real young, she would always say this to me. She'd be like, the whole goal of life is just to make life a little better before you leave. And I was just like, yeah, Mom, that sounds good. I'm trying to make it. I think guys like you and I are trying to make it a lot better.
That's right.
But my mom would have satisfied with just me making it a little bit better. And ultimately, I think if that's, it's spirituality, man, is the truth. I know that's big word, and it's got a lot of different connotations for different people, but there's this big, literally a guru. His name is Sadhguru. He's this Indian kind of mystic guy. He's big on YouTube, like 2 billion views on YouTube. He's on Joe Rogan. And he says, everything I do, I try to infuse a drop of spirituality into everything. And I always liked that too, because that's really, it's like, hey, this is about making money. And like, are you happy? Because like, if you're not, are you fulfilled?
So good. Love it.
Are you living your great life? It's so good.
So good. Well, talk to me about martial arts for a second though, because you've really taken that to a whole new level from what I'm used to in my community. So you have more than one school. You have, right? Like, tell me about your martial arts community.
Yeah, I'm really proud of my martial arts days, man. So starting from 15 years old, I cut my teeth. One of the best things the guy who sold me the school did was hire a consultant for me before he left. He said, I'm leaving. I'm getting out of the business, but I'm hiring you a martial arts consultant, a business consultant. And man, without that guy, I would not be here. I mean, the guy just was teaching me Master Arthur. I had big shout out. I always love to shout him out just because he was my original mentor, man. He was the one who got me into Tony Robbins. He was the one who got me into so many of these principles that you talk about and that you espouse as well, I know. But I built a small chain of martial arts schools, but one of our schools became, the top 1% of all schools in the United States. And my brother ran that school. And we built a really beautiful brand. It's called Up Level Martial Arts. And it was an impact-based brand. We had an online program that we built through COVID that had students training to become black belts in 28 states, all virtual, which was a really cool cutting edge concept because everybody was like, you can't get a black belt virtually. Like, you have to be hands-on. And like, we actually tested people for their black belt that only flew into Charlotte, which is where we're headquartered, for their black belt test. And they were badass. I was so nervous. Our first time we had people, they flew in from, I think, California. And I was like, we'd never met them. They'd only trained online. And I was like, looked over at my brother who was testing him. I'm like, are they any good? He's like, yeah, they're sick. And they were like so good. So we built, so the long story short, I built that. That was where I cut my teeth on entrepreneurship. That was where I made money to skim off the top and put it into real estate. And as of 2 weeks ago, I own no part of any martial arts school or even the brand. I sold off the rights to the brand as of 2 weeks ago, man.
Bro, I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was actually a trip to the mountains with a buddy. And we just started to make a cut list. We felt like we were pulled in too many directions. We said, what are all the things we need to cut so we can focus on co-living, almost exclusively. And dude, the list was like 2 full 8.5 pages, 8.5 by 11 pages long of like, we need to stop doing this and stop doing this. And then I was like, the hardest one was I'd already sold off some of my martial arts schools, but I was like, still like one toe in. And I was like, it's not going to die by selling the rest of it to the operators who were already doing a great job. And it was painful and I cried a little bit, but it was the right decision, man. It was the right decision.
Man, let's talk about that for a little bit. Who did you go on that retreat with? You said your business partner?
I had a guide I had a business partner. My COO came with me, and then we had a couple that was there with us, like a spiritual guide.
Okay. Yeah. And
there may or may not have been some psychedelic mushrooms involved, but it was in Colorado.
So what's interesting about that, have you read Ben Hardy's book, 10X is Easier Than 2X? I know that's a popular book.
Like every day now.
Yeah. Well, because
I've not read it.
You have not read it. So in the book, he says 10X is easier than 2X. And if you want to 10X your life, then you have to cut away 80% of your current identity.
Wow.
And so it sounds like that's what you went to this retreat to do, is to cut away, right? And we've been talking about it inside of my own community about, he says, and I forgot who he attributes this quote to, but people are kept from their goals, not by obstacles, but from a clear path to lesser goals. And then he talks about hidden commitments, and that we have these hidden commitments and habits and these lesser goals that are a part of our old identity, part of our old way of doing things. And at some point, they no longer serve our new vision of our desired future self. And yet we hold on to them. And so we never actually fully become all that we're meant to become, because we're still carrying these hidden commitments and these other goals and these other habits from old versions of ourselves. So kudos to you for, sounds like, cutting away 80% of everything that you were so that you could 10X everything that you want to be.
And it's ongoing, man. It's like the call I had before this call was asking my COO to cut another big project we're working on. And it's like, it turns into an argument because he has all these reasons why you should. Sure. I have all these reasons why we should. And like, I'm like, no, this is the season of our life. We're cutting to go deeper in a specific niche. Like, let's go. But so it's tough. But beautifully said. You have hidden commitments to lesser goals. I just jotted that down. That's beautiful. That's just, that in of itself is a soundbite of where are your hidden commitments to lesser goals, and get some good buddies around you to tell you where those are so you can start chopping those off.
That's right. Love it. That's right. So let's transition then to the co-living rentals. So I know that you're in the co-living rental space. Just to sort of set the stage for the listeners, I had the opportunity to buy this. It was a nursing home, but like an assisted living.
I'm so jealous.
Program or property is what I would say. And it had 9 apartments, which were duplexes. So it had 9 duplexes. So it has 18 doors, and the residents that were there were independent living residents. They drive, they are 55 and older. And then it has a 5,000 square foot, 11 bedroom, 12 bath house. And that's where they had the assisted living needs housed at. So they had staff there, and they had a cook, and they had a sort of like an activities coordinator. And those folks, when we bought the property, they moved out. And so now we're remodeling the house because we want to take your approach and make it a co-living residence. I don't know anything about it. You and I have had one call. I took lots of notes, and we've been incorporating that. I do have a lot of, I've got a few questions that I wanted to ask you to help us out. But for starters, one of the things you told me in our call a couple months ago is that you met with or talked with somebody, I'm going to let you reveal who that was, that said co-living is the way of the future or something like that. Yeah. How did you get into co-living? Tell me about who that was, what he said, and kind of tell us where you're at with your business of co-living right now.
Yeah, it was Robert Kiyosaki that leaned over the table at me and said, co-living, I believe, is the wave of the future. And then he leaned in a little closer and said, Sam, I live in a 4,800 square foot house on a lake. When shit hits the fan, and I'm quoting, that was his language, when shit hits the fan, I know exactly. He's like, I've literally already planned out where I'm going to put the walls and the doors so that I'm 6 units into my house. So I create my 4,800 square foot house becomes 6 units, and I'll live in one and I'll rent out the other 5. Robert Kiyosaki can be a little doomsday-ish right now, but I do think he's right about one thing. Co-living is the wave of the future, and it's an up-and-coming trend. I would liken it to Airbnb in 2011, 2012. or Uber when it first came out. When these platforms first came out, people thought that they were crazy because they're part of something that Americans are not very familiar with. And that is the shared economy. In America, and I'm quoting Brandon Turner. Brandon Turner was on my podcast the other day. He said, I think Americans are headed in the direction of the shared economy, but they're still kind of like, I have my gun and I have my house and you can't take it from me.
Yeah. Like, I can see that, man.
That's the American way. But when Uber first came out, everybody was like, hold on a second. Like you're going to have an app and it's going to tell you to drive to somewhere. You don't know where. Pick up a stranger. They're going to jump in the back seat of your car. Like this sounds like the setup for a murder mystery, not a freaking multi-billion-dollar company. And then drop you off somewhere. And then Airbnb was the same way, man. If you remember when it first came out, people were like, what? You're going to let people stay in your second home, your vacation home on the lake, and they're not going to destroy? Like everybody's going to destroy houses. And like now we have a multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think my check last month, it's July, so it was like the best month. It was like $107,000 from my property management company, from my Airbnbs. And it's like, hey, like this thing works now. Now, I for a variety of reasons, I think co-living is substantially better than Airbnb. And I will explain why if you want to go into that for listeners. But ultimately, that's what's driving a lot of this. I really think there's three things that are driving co-living. I'll just kind of share these three things. Number one is cost of housing.
Yep.
So cost of housing is increasing tremendously. And by all metrics, salaries and incomes are not increasing at the same rate that the cost of housing is. Just hands down. Just look at the numbers in almost any city. It's just not happening. So that means people are able to afford less and less and less and less of a house, or less and less and less of an apartment. So that's number one. It's driving people to make little sacrifices to live in a shared living home where they rent a room instead of a full apartment. The second thing is just what I shared. It's the shared economy. People are starting with Uber and Airbnb being the two biggest examples. People are starting to be a little bit more comfortable with the shared economy. I mean, Turo is another great example.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. So everybody's like, hey, I can like buy a car. And I know people with like Turo fleets, like they have like 20 cars and they're renting them out and they're theirs and everybody's sharing them. And it's that idea. And then the third thing is, man, the third thing that's really driving the co-living space is these homes are nice. I got written up in the newspaper fairly recently after speaking at an event in Asheville, North Carolina, and they said, this is just the newest greedy strategy by landlords to pack a bunch of people in a home and make a ton of money. Sam's just a greedy baron of a landlord. I mean, they went on, dude, and it was like, they were like, these homes are well nigh unlivable. And of course, whoever wrote this article has never seen my homes ever. They just wrote this to like get attention, right?
Sure.
And so I made some content based on it. I was like, let me show you some of my homes. And like our homes look like Airbnbs when you walk into them. They're nice. They're like, so like the fact that like this is not a downgrade. In some ways, it's an upgrade. All your utilities are included. The common area is already furnished. You have a lot of times, if there's a garage at these homes, we're turning them into these really cool, epic game rooms. Like this is a lot of times an upgrade. So I think cost of housing, shared economy, and then just the actual product itself being awesome is driving this huge wave for people to say, okay, I'll take a look at a room being the new apartment.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at this shared housing thing. Wait, you mean it's $800 versus $1,600 and all my utilities are included?
Yeah.
Versus $1,600? Like, okay.
Pretty awesome. One of the first guests that I ever had on my show when I took over from Jeff Woods was Todd Baldwin. Do you know Todd Baldwin? Has that name come across? So he's up in Washington, I think is where he's from. And he was advertised on NBC as a millennial millionaire from real estate investing. And what he did was he did co-living. So he created, he would buy 5 and 6 bedroom houses, and then he would set up the common area, and then he would rent the bedrooms out. Basically, he would rent houses out by the bedroom. Yeah. He went so far, which is one of the things I want to talk to you about today, is he would curate the groups of people. And I don't know if he can get away with it now. Of course, this was several years ago, but he would put all dudes in one, all females in another. Then he would have one that was co-ed, right? So he would try to put people by their interest. Women that only wanted to stay in a house with women, guys was just like a bachelor pad. And then, the co-ed kind of lifestyle, whatever that looked like for him, but he would curate the different groups. And obviously he would get more rent for his house that way than he would if he rented it out as a standard long-term rental. And they got cheaper rent. So anyway, I've been exposed to it. And then this opportunity came before me, and we got to figure this out, right? Because I want the apartments, but I'm inheriting the house. I got to get the house too. So what are we going to do? So here we are. I definitely.
And I just want to jump in and say one thing. You mentioned more rent than single family. I would just like to add in one little caveat: a lot more rent. Like we're talking homes, like most of the homes, that I would buy in Charlotte, to give an example of an actual city where we're doing this, like rents for $2,000. We rent it for $6,500. So it's not like 2,000 versus 2,400. No. We're doubling, we're tripling, we're quadrupling the rent sometimes on these homes by using a shared housing strategy and providing more affordable housing, which you commented on.
No doubt. And even in the childcare space, whenever you're talking about the shared economy, which this is a new, you just sparked this concept with me in the childcare industry. It's an industry where there's not a lot of money for staff, especially high paid staff. And so it's a lot of mom and pop operators across the country. And so there's this movement of shared services. So you have, and it's just like a fractional C-suite business, right? Or C-suite company. So at one childcare center can't afford like a master degree director, but three of them can.
Right.
And so the three childcare centers come together and they hire this one master degree director, and she spends a third of her time at each one. So they just share in a piece of it. Right. So even from a professional space, there's shared economy now with labor. So it makes sense. Let's talk about the rates.
Another great example of how shared economy is moving here, and like Americans are becoming more comfortable with it.
Yeah, we called it the co-op. Some kind of co-op is what it kind of was, where everybody kind of shared. They pull their money together. They did it with a CPA. They did it with a federal food program that was real laborsome. They would have one person that did it for 3, 4, 5 different schools. It's pretty good, and that's just another example of Americans shifting over to this shared economy. I love that.
I want to say this. I'll say this one quick thing. Americans, unless you travel, and Wyatt, I think you travel a decent amount outside of the country, but unless you travel outside of America, you don't get to see that is how most of the world lives. Like most of the world lives. If you go to Europe, the room is an apartment. Like renting a room is synonymous. Like you're like renting a room. It's the new apartment. It's what we do, Or you go to South America, like that's just how everybody lives. It's 15, 20 people in a house. You got multiple generations in a house. Like that is just the culture, right? Yeah. But a lot of Americans haven't traveled outside of America is the truth. And we just kind of assume like everybody has their own big house. That's still, and that's just not how it works.
That's right. Let's talk about market rate. So is there a formula, Sam, that you're using? Like if an average house is $1,600 a month, do you say that a room is 50%, 40%, 60%? How are you setting your room rates for co-living?
If you did it that way, you would be limiting yourself pretty significantly, because you'd be. Yeah, I think the better way to do it would be to go find out what a studio apartment costs for in your city. What's a studio or 1-bedroom apartment cost for in your city, and then your private baths. So if you have a private bath, and actually one of the beautiful things about the place that you just mentioned that you guys bought is you said 11 beds, 12 full baths.
That's right.
That is super awesome, right? I would even say that's one of the not having enough private baths is one of the things that constricts co-living and makes it a little bit more difficult right now, because you have to go in, you have to add baths, you have to make sure that you have a decent bed to bath ratio. You won't have that problem in your building because you bought a dang good building.
Yeah, I'm excited. They all have private bathrooms.
So cool. Private bathrooms in co-living will always rent for the highest rate, and they will rent the fastest and the quickest for sure. Your private baths probably need to be anywhere from 80 to 90% of what a studio apartment will rent for in your town.
Gotcha.
Now, a lot of people will say, well, hold on, that actually doesn't sound like that much of a discount, like 10%. And you have to, you're for a private bath versus I could get my own apartment. But here's where the discount comes in. That's just the formula I use. When you go rent a studio or a 1-bedroom apartment, you're paying whatever they're asking for. Let's call it $1,500. It's $1,500. Plus you're paying internet, you're paying water, you're going to pay trash, you're going to pay electric, you're going to pay all those things, right? So it's that cost plus those utilities. And so let's call it $1,800. And you're renting out your private bath for whatever price you're renting it out, 80 to 90% of the $1,500, that lower price. but you're including all the utilities. So there's
That's
the
right.
utility gap in there too, is what I'm trying to explain. That's
right.
a formula. And then what you do is you just kind of reduce your price off of that based on if it's shared, based on if it's a shared bath, if it's really small, you'll kind of take 10% increments and just cut off the price based on that. So here in Charlotte, to give an example, a shared bath, a bedroom that's sharing a bath with, say, 3 other people, it's probably going to rent for about $750 a month. If it's sharing with 2 other people, you might get $800 to $850. Let's call it $850. If it's private, you're going to get probably $1,000 for that room, maybe $1,050. Again, kind of depending on the size. If it has a private entrance, it's worth a little bit more. So some of this is a little bit more nuanced because these houses that you're converting to co-living are nuanced. Some of them have private entrances, some of them don't. Some of them are real small, some have huge rooms, right? So that's where the nuancedness comes in. But that's as much of a formula as I could probably help people with at this moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's go high level real quick, just to describe what co-living is. Like, how are you running your co-living? I kind of talked about Todd and what he was doing over in Washington, but co-living in a nutshell, you're renting a private bedroom, semi-private bathroom, and you're sharing the common areas, which is the living room and the dining room and the kitchen, with the other occupants of that house. In general, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll even take it higher level than that. Like, everybody on this listening to this has probably had roommates at some point in time.
Yep.
That's co-living.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Now you're furnishing the main areas like the den and the kitchen and the dining room, right? With the furniture, the appliances, the cups, the plates, all of it, all the utensils, all the things that you use in the house, right?
Yes.
What else are you including? I know you said utilities. What else as a co-living resident are you furnishing? Like, do you furnish laundry detergent? Do you furnish coffee in the kitchen? How do you do groceries, supplies, paper towels, toilet paper, all those kind of things? Tell me your model.
Yeah. If someone has a private bath, they supply all their own paper products and everything that they need for the private bath. If someone has a shared bath, then, it's really going to be between them and whoever else shares that bath to supply it with the paper products. Now, we do have a schedule, a rotation, if you will. So when someone moves into the house, we have this laminated kind of chart that goes on the refrigerator, and we put their names in, and there's usually a house manager at the house that we give a small discount at. And that house manager kind of makes sure that everybody pitches in and buys the supplies when it's their week to buy the supplies. Now, people can easily opt out of this system by paying an additional $50 a month, and then we'll just make it happen or set it up on a rotation. That's the easiest way to do it right now, to make sure that the house still has what it needs. But right now, mostly in all of our houses, it's a self-organized system on all the paper products and things like that. We'll set everything up. We'll furnish everything. We'll kind of give it like a starter package. And then we're like, you guys are adults. Like, you can figure out to buy toilet paper when you don't have any.
Yep. And what about the like the paper towel, the hand soap at the kitchen sink and things of that nature? Are they doing that on their own as well?
Yes.
Gotcha. So you're not supplying any supplies.
We are not, and people are amazed by that. There are co-living companies who do. They have like good systems in place for like supply and all of that. For us, it just hasn't been a need.
Yeah, I like it. And then what about maid service? Are you providing maid service for the general areas of the house at all?
It's important to provide maid service, once to twice a month for the common area of the home and the shared bathrooms. If you do that, the home stays cleaner. When your property manager comes in to show the home to a new tenant, you kind of have a better expectation of it being clean and kind of understanding. And if you do that with the maid service, and in addition, if you tack on a very hard and fast house rule of no personal items in the common space, you can generally keep a clean common space, even with 9-10 people sharing the home.
I like it. What is the biggest common house that you have? How many residents do you have? And what are the most amount of residents you have in one of your properties? Do you have
currently, as it stands right now, 9? But we're launching a 10-bedroom house next week.
Okay. I need
and we have a student, and one of my students in one of my programs just bought a 12-bedroom house here in Charlotte.
Wow. So are you converting houses to 10 bedrooms, or you're buying 10-bedroom houses?
No, that house was 4 bedrooms. The 9-bedroom house was a 4-bedroom house before I converted it. The 10-bedroom house was a 4-bedroom house before I converted it. Yes, you're just taking all usable space except for a common area, and you are turning it into the nicest bedroom you possibly can. That's co-living.
I love it. I love it, man. That's awesome. Let's talk about your school. I want to know about that. So tell me about your school and your program that you have where you're teaching other people to do this.
We have two different levels of programs that I offer. One is called 12 Months to Financial Freedom University. And it is not a promise that you will get to financial freedom in 12 months, but really what it is designed to be is a sprint to that level. The beautiful thing about co-living is, let's just say a home rents, for example, and again, this is not an earnings claim or a promise, but let's say I have some homes that will net, anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Let's split the difference and say $2,500. If someone out there is living on 6 figures a year, $100,000 a year, they need just a little bit more than 3 homes to hit their financial freedom mark, for the income from those homes to cover all their expenses. So to be financially free with only 3 homes is really a mind-blowing concept for a lot of people. And so I'm trying to let people know financial freedom is not something way out there. It's a sprint to it. And if we take the right actions, if we implement the co-living strategy well enough and have a good product that people want, you can get to financial freedom in a short period of time. And then we have a program much higher than that. It's called Inner Circle, where we have this white glove service integrated where we will do everything for them. So the 12 Months to Financial Freedom University is like us coaching people on how to do it themselves, and providing all the templates and the checklists and the membership agreements and everything that they need to do this. So it's just plug and play. The Inner Circle is basically where they're like, I don't want to do any of it, but you guys have a team and you'll manage it and you'll find the properties and you'll negotiate and you'll oversee contractors. And we have a whole team built out that does that. That's our white glove service, if you will. And then we do that for our Inner Circle clients. And
so the Inner Circle client signs up with you, so they pay you money. And then what do they do as part of the deal? What do they bring to the table? Do they just bring the deal flow, or do they bring the deal flow, the deal and money?
No, we have the deal flow. So we vet deals. We're vetting 100 deals a week. And we are picking the best ones and then allowing our Inner Circle clients to buy them. So the Inner Circle client has to bring the financing for the property. They have to be able to buy the property.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they buy the property and then you manage it. And then you're bringing the deal flow as part of the value to that student.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Sam, where can people find out more about that ad?
Everybody gets started in either of these programs in the same way. You can't just jump in and enroll. You really have to go through what I call a vetting process. It's really just a free 5-day challenge. It's like an hour a day deep dive. But for whatever reason, when people go through the challenge, they understand it more. We've done these calls where people just jump in and it just it's not a good fit for our culture. So if they understand it and then they want more after the 5 days and it's a free challenge, they can go to www.scaleyourrealestate.com and they can just get on the waiting list for whenever the next one is. We just have them periodically throughout the year.
I love that. And then I've seen your doodle video, maybe an infomercial commercial on co-living. What is the website where people can find that out? I have it kind of memorized, but I couldn't quote it right now.
They can go. Well, so the property management company that my wife and I own is called Life Door Rentals.
Life Door Rentals.
They want to watch a little video that's like and yeah, you're right, Wyatt. It's like in 2 minutes. It explains very succinctly what co-living is.
Yeah, it's very good. So good. All right. I have a couple of questions.
LifeDoorRentals.com. I'll say that.
LifeDoorRentals.com for sure. Got it. What about technology? When we talked about co-living being similar to the beginnings of Airbnb, and Airbnb being an app, right? Airbnb's it's a philosophy with an app. Do you see co-living rentals being migrating over, evolving to being coordinated like Airbnb with an app and more hands-off as a property owner? What kind of technology are you using to vet tenants or put tenants in? Are they short-term tenants? Are they long-term? I know that in our calls, you don't furnish the bedrooms. That's their own furniture. But talk to me about the terms of the lease and the technology part of how you're putting all these people together and leasing out the rooms.
Yeah, awesome questions, man. What a lot of people don't know about me, and I forgot to mention this, or I did not mention this in the intro, is that I lived in co-living homes for 13 and a half years.
Wow.
So this is not a money-making strategy for me as much as it was, I'm a product of the product.
I love it.
I loved co-living. I enjoyed it. I had fun in it. Now, granted, I also was one of 8 kids. So I guess if you count my 18 years of growing up
It's been
as
your whole
co-living, I've been co-living my whole life. So I am not a fan of co-living being a short-term housing opportunity. I am trying to promote, honestly, what I believe passionately is a better way to live. Now, there are challenges that go along with it. I will not lie about that. But I officiated one of my housemates' weddings because he came to me one day and was like, hey, man, I'm going to get married and I want you to officiate it. And it's just been such a cool opportunity to live with you in this house. Like, those are the types of relationships and community that form. I'm not saying that happens in every one. I'm not saying you love everybody in the house or whatever, but you don't have to hang out with them. But like I'm saying, there are opportunities for community in a communal living situation. Go figure, right? Opportunities for community and communal living. And so this model, if done correctly with the right systems, can facilitate that. Now, it can also be a nightmare if you don't have the right systems. I have friends that do it that way too, and it's terrible. So you have to have the right systems and the right nuances. So that being said, truly what I'm here partly in this season of my life to promote is like, guys, I believe that people will want to live in a co-living home more than they would want to live on their own if us as co-living owners do our job correctly. If we have such a great product, almost like the guy you were talking about that has the niches, which that is a way to do it. You have to get around some fair housing laws and you got to be a little careful about that. But if you do that, yeah, people will want to live in this more than they would want to live on their own, because the truth is we are all community minded and we are tribal beings and want to be around people. So the room is the new apartment. I truly believe that. And if that's the case, that's why I don't furnish, by the way, because I want people to bring their furniture in and feel like it's their own apartment, feel like it's their own space. If they want to change the light bulbs out to neon blue, which I've had done before in the fan, like they can do that. It's their place.
Love it.
Now, that being said, my philosophy is that we sign long-term leases. So when you go in and you rent a room, like, hey, your initial lease term is 12 months. Similar to an apartment or similar to renting a house. I do believe that is the best model for stability of tenants. Now, we offer a 6-month, and I think we even offer a 3-month right now, as at a fairly significant premium. You know, in all fairness to those people who have signed a 12-month lease.
Yep.
Now, the biggest technology company out there doing co-living right now is PadSplit. They are trying to be, I would say, the Airbnb of room rentals. They do not own the real estate, but they will manage it. And they are the platform behind that allows owners to be hands off. Now, PadSplit, I've heard, and it can be expensive. They can take a chunk of the revenue, a decent chunk of the revenue. And they are still tweaking some of their systems. They're a new up and coming tech company, but they are growing. They're getting better. And so that is an option when it comes to the management of it. Another option is just finding companies like mine. Now, granted, we're more local, so you kind of have to have the connections, because I'm not advertising to the world that I manage in. Like, I manage only in Charlotte, North Carolina and Asheville, North Carolina. And that's all, because it's, I get economies of scale here. But there are other companies like that. I know a couple guys who have 150 rooms in Austin, 200 rooms in Phoenix that like will do these types of managements. In the next few years, man, you're going to see tons of opportunities for management, though. It's just, people are starting to learn and understand that this is here to stay, and there's going to be more management companies popping into that space. I'm not sure if I answered all your questions, but that's kind of my,
man. I think that's all. That's explaining a lot. Is there an app or a software that you're using to vet applicants? Are you doing it just like a traditional tenant in a whole apartment? Like, is all that the same?
Yeah, like I think the easiest thing that you could think about what I do is it's an 8-unit apartment building. So they need a credit check, they need a background check, they need to make sure that they have a good lease, and then they need to make sure they have 3 times the rev. They need to be making 3 times what the rent costs at least, right? It's kind of our criteria for their income. So if the room's $800, as long as they're making $2,400 a month, like they're good, right?
Yep.
The things that would be different would be a solid set of house rules. So that like you can evict for house rules.
Yep.
Right. Like if someone breaks the house rules. Things that would be different would be how you set up the home, how you labeled the home, all the cabinet spaces labeled per room, all the refrigerator spaces labeled per room. And so that is maybe some of the nuanced differences. And then also how you handle complaints about other tenants. right? So I'm sure somebody's asking this question. Somebody's listening to this and going, I get the money, but like, what about when John eats Susie's peanut butter out of the cupboard?
Yes.
She's
they're frozen pizza. That's right.
Exactly. He got hungry, went to the other shelf.
Yes.
It happens. We used to not do this for years, but we have started to put cameras in the common space.
Oh, that's one of my questions today. Cameras for the common space. Where do you use cameras?
Only in the common space, obviously, like only in the common space, and the common space is small enough. Usually, just one ring camera in that allows us if it ever escalates to be able to handle that, and it also just creates accountability.
Yeah. Now, have you found resistance from tenants on that? Do they feel like invasion of privacy? They say no, I don't want it.
I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't know. That's a question for my property manager. She's the one that implemented that. And I'll be even more honest with you. I didn't even know until last week we were doing this. I was telling everyone we had no cameras inside, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we put cameras in the common space now." And I was like, "Really, Jess?" She's like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, how's that working?" It's working great. Creates accountability. She gave me why, and I was like, "Okay." So I'm not in the weeds and the day-to-day as much. I'm in acquisitions. I'm in the teach side of this company. And so Jess is our property manager, and she is badass. But she has given me her reasons for why that it's important, and I believe her.
Yep. Well, let's talk about, we haven't talked about the size of your portfolio. So how many doors, houses, like how do you quote how big your portfolio is? And then talk to me a little bit about your team and how many employees you have that run it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the crazy thing. My wife and I own and manage, I'm going to combine it just for the sake of this analogy. We own and manage 14 Airbnbs.
Okay.
And to do that, we have a staff of 4 full-time people, 2 full-time virtual assistants, a full-time property manager, and a full-time maintenance guy, right? 14 Airbnbs, 4 full-time people. They do really well. They're big. They're luxury Airbnbs. And those are not just ours. Those are the ones some of the ones we manage too. We have 190 doors right now, and then we have like 20 going live literally in the next week. So we'll be at, call it 210. We have 2 full-time people that manage those 210 doors. 1 full-time property manager and 1 full-time virtual assistant. Now we did, like as of last week, we will probably be at 300 doors, and that means rooms, not houses. Okay. So 300 doors probably by the end of 2023. That's how rapidly we're growing. And I was like 120 for the longest time, but we're just really growing this white glove service. We're putting these homes into our community. So we're growing. So we did just hire a few more people, but it wasn't to maintain what we currently had. It was because we're looking ahead and adding 100 doors in the next couple months. Mm-hmm. So that's the size of the portfolio. It's growing really rapidly. We've got an opportunity right now to do some ground up. If anybody here has construction experience or you get excited about that, let me go a little technical for anybody who might be in this. We have a lender willing to lend on the net operating income of a co-living home, even if it's built as a single family home on a single family lot.
Okay. So number one, my business partner is a production builder.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So
and we want to do build to rent. So now what you're doing is build to rent co-living style.
Yes.
So when you tell me that you have a lender that's willing to rent on the net operating income, is that the same as a DSCR kind of loan?
No, because a DSCR guy will come in and they will not, right now, the DSCR loan lenders will not evaluate. The DSCR lenders will come in and they're just going to do a normal appraisal, which is in residential real estate. It's just a comp-based appraisal, which means hey, the house down the street sold for 400. Yours is worth 400. You're like, yeah, but mine is producing $6,500 a month in income. That one, because they don't have specialized knowledge, it's renting for $2,000. So I got a local lender. Now I need to be very transparent. He has cleared this with underwriting. He's like telling me he can do it. I have not closed a deal on this yet.
Yeah,
it's a very recent development in my space. But I will say that this is not just any old lender. He has given me probably $5 million already to buy co-living homes. He knows this model. He's seen me do it over years. There's a relationship here.
Yep.
He said, Sam, pay $2,200 for an appraisal. I'll get you a commercial appraisal if you're willing to do that. And I will underwrite this thing at a valuation, and I'll give you a valuation based on NOI. And I said, I will refinance every property I have with you.
Now, why would you do that? Because the value would be higher, so you'd pull out some cash?
Yeah, I mean, the value would be significantly higher. You're not just basing it on like, oh, it's 400,000. It's going to be totally based on what that thing is making, and obviously, it will
like an apartment complex,
just like an apartment complex.
Very
they have a
interesting.
specific code that they use called a boarding house, and a boarding house is based on income.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the bank is using that set of rules to underwrite.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. So on your staff for the co-living, you have a full-time virtual assistant and a full-time property manager. That's what you told me? And you're outsourcing the maintenance still?
And the maintenance is outsourced. Now, my caveat to all of that is I used that analogy to give people an example of what's possible with approximately 200 rooms and comparing that to Airbnb and just the intensities of Airbnb, right? We did just make 3 additional hires, but I just wanted to be clear. It's not for what we have. It's for where we're going.
Sure.
So we did just make a full-time maintenance hire, like literally in the last week or two.
Gotcha.
We did just make another virtual assistant hire that's only member support. And then we made a part-time leasing person that can travel to do showings for homes.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm just going to go because I know that we've been going pretty long here. I'm going to just rattle off some of the questions that I have for you. How did you decide on the tenant and mixing them together? So in your co-living houses, are you doing groups, ages like mine, maybe 55 and older, because that's what the complex is, the complex is already geared to? Do you do men, women, young, single, married? Tell me how all that works.
Anybody interested to go into co-living and collect this kind of cash flow, look, you need to be really careful about this type of advertising, because when you start niching down too much, you do run into a decent amount of fair housing laws that are like, you can't discriminate who you rent to based on gender, even based on age. Now, I know there's some laws, and I'm not an expert in them. I know some laws that protect that you can advertise to the 55 plus community. I'm not an expert in that, so I don't know what those specifically would be. Check with a lawyer. But if you start getting too niched, here's what I do know. I've written an ad on Facebook Marketplace for a co-living home, and I have put in that ad, young professional. And they have shut me down and said, you're discriminating with a housing ad. Do not ever do that again, or we'll shut your whole account down. So it really depends on like where you're advertising. What I would recommend is be generic about your ads. You can list who's in the home and then hope like attracts like here's the 5 people that share this home. Like wink, wink. I hope you also are one of those kind of people, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously you can vet based on credit and background and like if they're a really good fit.
Sure.
If you want to have a conversation with someone and they express to you they only want a female-only house, and that's kind of like during a phone call or something, like, okay, do your thing, but just be mindful about how you're advertising.
Got it.
We do not have niched homes right now. Our homes are all co-ed. Our homes are all 100% in alignment with fair housing laws. If you're a bad fit because of credit or background, or you have a violent history and we don't want to put you in, like, of course, we're gonna say no to that. But you
might have a 19-year-old and a 70-year-old in the same house.
Yes.
Gotcha. I mean, that's how open it is.
We will share, like as we're giving the tour, we will share who's in the house, what they do. We'll give some background.
And then let them decide.
Exactly.
Gotcha. I love it. What about locks? Do you have locks on the bedroom doors that are key coded, like a keypad, or are they entry with a key? What's the locking system? Do you have locks on the exterior doors? Do they lock at a certain time at night? Talk to me about locks and security.
So cameras inside, as I just learned, and then one on the outside, of course, at least one on the outside. You need to have just keyless entry is so easy to change and so easy to use. So keyless entry on the front, and then keyless entry on all the bedroom doors. You know, people need to have that sense of safety and privacy in their own room, especially if the room is the new apartment. It needs to feel like they're walking into a safe environment when they open that door to their bedroom.
So is that secure?
That's pretty much it.
Is that keyless entry just like the battery keyless entry locks from Home Depot? Not connected to an alarm system or Wi-Fi and all that, or they are?
They're not Wi-Fi. When we do a room flip, we'll change the code when we do the room flip when someone moves out. But they have I don't know the brand right off the top of my head, to be totally honest with you. They have like a 3x3. They have all the little digits on the face of it. So kind of like, it's almost like you're going into a safe. It's like beep, 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 clicks and opens. And then when the battery dies, there's like they come with a little battery pack that we leave in the kitchen somewhere that they can plug in just enough to get the code in and get in, and then they can replace the batteries.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Got it. On the main entry doors, do they lock at a certain time? Do you advertise, hey, the locks are going to lock at 10, or it's up to the people that live there to lock the main door?
Yeah, it's up to the people that live there to lock the main entrance is the truth. Yeah, no, they don't. They're not even Wi-Fi capable right now.
Got it. And we already talked about it. You've got a room manager or house manager that you give a small discount to sort of make sure that everybody's following by the rules and doing the chores or whatever.
Exactly. Having a house manager helps eliminate problems. It allows you to do showings in the house. If you're a property manager or if you're really busy, they can actually take a showing, get a little bonus for that. And they can just make sure the trash goes out. They can make sure the house is running clean. It's quiet. It's safe. They can be the eyes and the ears there in the place. And they really take responsibility for it if you choose the right person. And it's a win-win to have a house manager in a co-living community.
Yeah. And then you offer for the residents to pay for their chores to get done if they don't want to do the chores.
Yes.
And who does that chore if they're paying for it? Does that go to the house manager to make that extra money?
No, it would go to our cleaners who come in on some sort of regular basis to clean that house.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And we already talked about that too.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
That's all the questions that I had. This is so awesome. I'm so excited. So like we're rehabbing the house right now. We're kind of in demo mode right now, kind of taking things away, and then we're going to put it back together. We've got our plans. We've got all the stuff being worked out. So hopefully we'll go live sometime in November. And we've got 11 spots to fill. So we're building the bench right now. We had our first call yesterday from the sign co-living, and they said they were specifically calling about the co-living. So we're fired up about it.
Yeah, an advertisement like just room for rent. A little hack for you. Whatever, you're in Baton Rouge, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just Google. Did I tell you? I don't know if I told you this already. Just Google. I'm going to give you a hack for how you know exactly where to advertise all these rooms that you have for rent.
Okay.
Google room for rent Baton Rouge, or if there's a smaller sub-market, just, Google room for rent, whatever that town or city is. And whatever comes up on the first page of Google, so whatever the top 10 things that come up are, whatever the top websites are that come up, advertise on all those. And I guarantee you it's probably going to be Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Roomster, Roomies, Hot Pads, but I don't know. It's actually different per city. Like in my city, where people are looking for rooms could be different, but Google obviously ranks stuff by how popular it is. So it's already getting traction if it's on page 1 of Google. So that's where you stick out your ads and you just crush it from there.
This blows my mind that this exists. Here's Roomies. I just did it. Roomies, rent.com, rentals.com, Cirtu, CIRTU.
Never heard of that one.
This is why you do it. All the apartments that are already advertised here. Craigslist, Zoomper, ZUMP.
Zumper's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Apartment Guide. Wow. What? This blows my mind.
There's all your places to advertise. It kind of varies a lot of those we use too, because they're kind of common amongst cities, but usually, like for example, Zumper, they're putting money into advertising. Zumper's trying to grow to be that platform where people can list a room, right? So like they're already pumping probably hundreds of thousands of dollars into getting on that first page of Google.
Yep.
Like, great. You want to be on their platform. And you only know that when you just do a simple Google search. So yeah, man, blast it out and
so good.
And get that thing filled and then come back for more. We're going to do more.
No doubt, man. Man, this has been so awesome. Thanks again for spending time with me today. And if I can do anything for you in South Louisiana, Sam, hit me up, man.
Well, brother.
Yep. All right. We'll see you soon.